Who was Leeds United's greatest player of the season for the last 10 seasons? I was going to do the last 20 years and the last 20 seasons, but realistically, I wasn't really analysing Leeds when I was 5, 6 years old, so I'm going to do the last 10 years. We're going to start off with 2013-14 season. If you guys enjoy this concept of video, be sure to smash 200 likes. Also, comment your changes. Who would you pick as the greatest player from that season? And subscribe if you're new, if you want to see more content like this. Without further ado, let's get into it. So the 13-14 season was a rough one for Leeds United. I do have my notes down here, so I'm going to keep looking up and down. But Leeds United finished 15th in the table this year. We lost 6-0 to Sheffield Wednesday. We lost 5-1 to Bolton. We had the longest losing run in the league of 5 games that season. Brian McDermott was in charge. And if you remember this season at all, there was only one man absolutely carrying Leeds United that season. If he didn't score these goals, we probably would have been relegated or near enough been relegated. But it's Ross McCormack. Ross McCormack this season scored 28 goals and Leeds United finished 15th. I mean, how's that even possible? If that doesn't show what a one-man team is, I don't know what is. I mean, there was no one else really sort of came close. I was kind of arguing with Rudy Austin, but I know Rudy Austin kind of, halved the fan base. I know a lot of fan base thought he was all right. A lot of fan base thought, actually, he's not very good at all. I know Jer is a massive fan of Rudy Austin, but come on, there's only one man there, and it's Ross McCormack, 28 goals. Leeds United finished 15th this season, and he scored 28 goals. Without him, realistically, we probably could have been relegated. The 2014-2015 season was also a meh one. We had David Hockaday in charge. Then we had Milnach. He was there, or Darko Milnach. He was there for a month and 2 days. Then we had Neil Redfern to see out the season. God, we've had a lot of bad managers over the last sort of 10 years. It wasn't a great season for anyone. There was a couple of close calls. I'm going to chuck in Antonucci for an honourable mention. I really liked the Italian Mirko Antonucci. He scored 10 goals this season, which wasn't too bad in the 14-15 season. But for me, there is one player that stands out for me more than Antonucci, and that was Lewis Cook. He got the young player of the season in the championship for this season. It was just a season of we were just getting rid of managers. Chelino was in charge, and it just wasn't good for Leeds United. Belushi had a racism scandal as well. It just wasn't going well for Leeds United at all. So the 14-15 season, I think, sort of the shining light of that season, you could argue it was Antonucci, but Lewis Cook in the middle of the park, winning the younger player of the championship, he was decent. And again, we finished 15th from that season. So no real improvement from the season before, despite going through 4 managers. But yeah, I'm going to go with Lewis Cook. The 15-16 season, we saw a little bit of an improvement of Leeds United. Leeds finished 13th that year, better 2 places better than the previous 2 seasons. We had Uwe Rosler in charge, then we had Steve Evans. There was a bit more hope around the club. I don't know about you guys at this point. There was a bit more hope that, okay, maybe the following season we can go and push on. But this is the season that Byram joined West Ham as well. I remember growing up, I hated that. It's like something ripped out of my heart. It was awful. It was heartbreak for me because I loved Sam Byram, and obviously he's back at the club now. There was a couple of, close honourable mentions for this one as well. Stuart Dallas, we started to see a bit more of Stuart Dallas in this season. I think he got around 6-7 goals, and he got quite a few assists as well. Sol Bamba was another one in there. If you guys remember Sol Bamba, shout out to that legend. And again, Lewis Cook came close for me. I think this was one of his last seasons that he had at Leeds United before he was sold. But again, I'm going to give it to the man, Chris Wood. Chris Wood, I know there's going to be quite a lot of striker and how many goals they scored, but in these sort of seasons, there was no real outlet. There was nothing that you could really get excited about for Leeds United apart from the bloke who's scoring the goals. But for me, it's Chris Wood. He got 13 goals this year under Uwe Rosler, under Steve Evans. And like I said, there's a bit more hope. Steve Evans, I've got a soft spot for Steve Evans. He's doing well now, and also I just always have. I really liked him, but for me, Chris Wood, he scored some decent goals in that season. Like I said, 13, so not bad at all. There was a couple of honourable mentions, but yeah, there was a bit of an improvement of the previous 2 seasons. But yeah, we finished 13th, and my player of the season for that season, I'm going to give it to Chris Wood. The 16-17 season has always been, for me, an underrated season. I loved this season. I really, really did. Things were starting to click. We finished actually 7th this season. We were 5 points off the playoff. I call this the season that changed Leeds. And I know it's a bit of an odd one, but Gary Monk was in charge. And he, honestly, for me, has been the top three Leeds United coaches of the last 10 years. For me, I think it's been, obviously Bielsa's there. And then I'd say it's sort of Daniel Farke, sort of Gary Monk arguing for that second, third spot. Because for me, Gary Monk did change Leeds. I thought the way we were playing was very, very good. And it was a very underrated season. Like I said, 5 points off playoffs. Obviously, Gary Monk went and snaked us and he went over to Middlesbrough. No hard feelings there in the end. But yeah, I mean, the Chris Wood, again, for me, he gets player of the season for this season. Chris Wood got 30 goals in all competitions. He's got back-to-back greatest player of the season for me. There was a lot of honourable mentions this year. Pablo, I mean, we don't even have to talk too much about Pablo. We know how much of a legend that man is. Pontus Jansson, I mean, he was absolutely brilliant. Again, with Roof, Carl Bartley. We got Rob Green on a free that season. We just had a good team. And we were just, a couple of individual sort of errors and performances that the reason why we probably didn't push for playoffs, but this was a hell of an improvement from the previous year where we finished 13th, and it was helped by Chris Wood scoring 30 goals in all competitions. I mean, that was absolutely fantastic. So back-to-back awards for him. I'm giving it to Chris Wood for them 30 goals in all competitions. And then we kind of went downhill again in the 17-18 season with, I believe it was, we had Thomas Christensen as gaffer, and then he got sacked, and then we got in Paul Heckingbottom. Again, this was our first full season with Radrazani. This after Chilino went. And Monk leaves for Borough. Chris Wood leaves as well. He's doing that weird. Remember when he put his notes out to say that he's not starting this game? He put it in a notes thing on his iPhone. He didn't even come out and say anything. It was a bit poor. We finished 13th, so we've gone back. So we've gone 15th, 15th. 13th, 7th, where you're like, oh, go on, Leeds. And then we dropped back to 13th again. It was poor. Thomas Christensen, he was a nice guy. He was a nice guy. That's about it. Also with Heckenbottom as well. He got us over the mark in the end. But if you're looking for standout players that season, honourable mentions again, Kmar Roof and Pablo Hernandez. I thought Pablo that season was one of them where he would just pull a goal or an assist out of his arse, especially when we needed it. And same with Roof. But there's one player that I really like to watch, and that was Samuel Saiz. Apart from his attitude problem, on his day, he was an absolute brilliant player. I really love Samuel Saiz. So for me, I'm going to give it to him. I thought he was the greatest player that season. He did make stuff happen all the time. But yeah, his attitude stunk. And, next year we found out that, if your attitude stinks, you're not going to be at the club, mate. The 18-19 season, Marcelo Bielsa's first season. And what a season it was. I mean, not in the end, because that playoff game against Derby, let's not even talk about it. But I thought this is the season Leeds United are back. I remember watching the first game of the season thinking, oh my God, this is my team playing like this. We finished 13th the season before, and I thought it was just going to get worse. But Bielsa's come in. He was an unknown source. Paul Merson was going, I don't know why you're bringing him in. Shut up. You know what I mean? Like, shut up. You don't know what you're on about, Merce, okay? I mean, I could have picked anyone for this season. There's honourable mentions all over the shop. This season was brilliant. Obviously, we finished third and we missed out on the Premier League that season, but it didn't stop us next season, obviously. But Ayling, I mean, turned into one of the best right backs in the league. Dallas, Pontus Jansson, Berardi, Kalvin, Matthias Klick found his form after being out on loan for the following 2 seasons. He was brilliant. Roof, I know it was just heartbreak that season, but it was just so good. That season was so good. But for me, I've got to give it to Pablo Hernandez for this season. He hasn't earned it yet. Over the last few seasons, he could have earned it. But I'm going to give him the 18-19 season for his 12 goals in all competitions. He was absolutely brilliant. Assisted. He was magic. He kind of just defined Bielsa ball. He was absolutely brilliant this season, Pablo. And he was brilliant for his whole time at Leeds United. He was kind of, the dime in the horse shit we had at the club sometimes. So, it could have been any of them. And I want to know who you guys think in the comments down below. Let me know. But for me, I'm going to go Pablo Hernandez. The 19-20 season, the season Leeds United went up, the season of COVID. I mean, we were too good this season. We really were, because the season before we thought, can Leeds United do that again? Of course we did. We done it better. We finished first. We won the title. Again, could have picked anyone for me. It could have been Kalvin Phillips. I love Kalvin Phillips. It's my favorite player of all time. Could have been Pablo. Could have been Dallas, Ayling, Klick, Coops. anyone, literally anyone. Bielsa this year was an absolute god. We were absolutely brilliant. Obviously, that Bristol City game where we lost 2-0 and everyone thought, oh no, this could be the turn or something. We then went on and won like 9 out of our last 10 games. We won the league. Happy days. How good were we that season? But I've given it to a lot of attackers and midfielders for the previous sort of seasons. I'm actually going to give it to Ben White. I absolutely loved Ben White, and he was a huge part of why Leeds United went up that season. If you got time, go back and watch his highlights in a Leeds United shirt. Yes, he might, divide opinion now. Arsenal, England, all that stuff with his fake tan and blonde hair. But Leeds United, Ben White, he was an absolute Rolls Royce in the Championship. And like I said, it could have been to any player. Even Helder Costa had a decent season. Come on. But for me, I'm giving the defenders some plaudits. I'm giving it to Ben White. COVID season 2021, behind closed doors, Leeds United finished 9th in the Premier League. Yes, you heard that right. 9th in the Premier League. I never thought I'd see the day, but we were absolutely fantastic that season. I think that's the season we beat Man City at the Etihad. We drew 1-1 with Liverpool. We doubled Tottenham, I believe, that season. We drew 0-0 with Man United. We drew with Arsenal. All this. Now you can imagine what, maybe we could get back to that place, but I never thought that was going to be the case. Again, very good honourable mentions here. Kalvin, again, how he broke through to the England side from this season. Raphinha, he was absolutely excellent. His first season at Leeds United, come on, this man was just unstoppable. Ayling, Harrison, even Diego Llorente. Do you know what I mean? Even go back to Ayling, actually. Ayling was probably one of the best right-backs in the league. You put him in your FPL, he'd get your points. This man will get your points, but I've got to give it to one man. 17 goals, 8 assists in the Premier League. It's got to be Patrick Bamford. Who even took over him that season? He scored a hat-trick against Villa. He was scoring all these vital goals. Patrick Bamford, for me, was absolutely perfect that season. He really, really was. 17 goals in the Premier League. I think he was the 3rd top goal scorer. I think he was only behind like Harry Kane and Son or something like that. But either way, Patrick Bamford for me. Like I said, a lot of honourable mentions. We finished 9th in the Premier League, a few points off top 4 as well. Come on. We finished ahead of Arsenal that season. And look what they're doing now. What happened? Should we have got rid of Bielsa? Let me know in the comments down below. 21-22 season, the season that Bielsa got sacked. We stayed up on the final day, finishing 17th. Jesse Marsch appointed. We know all that stuff. It was a very, very tough season. Honourable mentions, not a lot of them, really. I put Kalvin when he's fit. Rodrigo had an all right season. Harrison was okay in games. I think it was a season he scored a hat-trick against West Ham. I was at that game. And single-handedly sometimes did help us, Harrison. But this was a bit of a be careful what you wish for season. Get rid of Bielsa because he's shipping a lot of goals, and then we just keep shipping a lot of goals with the same team. Jesse Marsch, yeah, we know how that ended. But for me, player of the season was the man you've seen in the thumbnail, Raphinha. Come on. He scored 11 goals in all competitions for Leeds United this season, single-handedly kept us up. A lot of people say Jesse Marsch kept us up. No, you didn't. Raphinha kept us up this season. Honourable mention as well, Joffy. I think Joffy came and I think the equaliser assist against Palace, the final goal against Norwich. These are all big points and all big, crucial moments that kept Leeds United in the Premier League that season. But as we know, it didn't get good the following season. So last year, the 22-23 season, Leeds United finished 19th. We were relegated this season. We had Jesse, we had Gracia, we had Big Sam. What an awful season it was. And absolutely, it started so well. We were 3rd 3 games in. We had 7 points. We've beaten Chelsea, we've beaten Wolves, and I thought, I'm going to check my passport now because we're getting Europe. But that's definitely not what happened. We spent so much money on Aronson, Adams. I know Jorginho Rutter in the end came to be quite good in the Championship, but at the time it looked like a complete waste of money when he came on. Honourable mentions for this season, I've got to say Harrison again. Harrison's I do find in the Leeds United shirt, I can't talk for the Toffees fans now. I don't want him back either, but he was a solid sort of 6 most games. Adams, Tyler Adams was all right until he jumped ship, obviously. Max Vober as well. Somerville, Nonto, Cini. I'm not going to give loads of honourable mentions because we finished 19th, so they can't have been brilliant. But for me, I'm going to say Rodrigo. Rodrigo scored 15 goals in all competitions, and I thought maybe he could have been the saving grace to keep us up, but unfortunate for him. And when we got relegated, he was one of maybe 2 that maybe deserved their move because Rodrigo tried to do his best to stay up. And, he's out now, I believe, playing in Saudi. I haven't heard much of Rodrigo, actually, but he scored 15 goals in all competitions. It wasn't enough to keep Leeds in the Premier League. Just look back at the final day of the season. When we lost 4-1 and we conceded inside 2 minutes to try and keep us up, it was pretty much impossible to stay up anyway, but there was no fight. We got Big Sam in, and it just wasn't the right idea. Remember the Palace game with Javier Gracia? We were 1-1 at half-time, then lost 5-1. Something happened at that half-time. I want to know what happened. And this current season, as of recording, this is the international break in March, the 24th of March. Leeds United are sitting first as of filming. We're looking very good. Honourable mentions again. Can I say, Joe Rodon? I think he's been the perfect signing. We need to sign him up. Apparently, Newcastle are liking the look of him. I saw that today, which isn't good. Archie Gray. I'm not saying anymore. He's He's one of the best players in the world. Okay, that's mental. Pascal Struijk, Somerville, Rutter, James. You could give it to most people, but for me, I'm going to give it to Ethan Ampadu. I think Ethan Ampadu, he could play centre back, centre mid. You give him the armband. He's absolutely fantastic. Every player tries to live up to Ampadu in the middle of the park, even at the back. He has been a hell of a signing for Leeds United, and I can't believe that people weren't using him. All these loan moves that he had, and he's just absolutely just fit right in with Leeds United. He deserves the armband. He deserves to play wherever he wants. He's the only Leeds player. I think he's one of only 3 Championship players to play every minute this season. You don't take him out the team. He's absolutely brilliant. He's done well for Wales as well. Played 90 minutes for Wales a couple of nights ago as well. So for me, Ethan Ampadu has been the greatest player from this season. Guys, if you did enjoy this sort of different video, be sure to smash that like button. I want to see what you guys are thinking. I need to upload some more, so this is sort of a new concept I'm working on. If you want to see maybe worse players from every season over the last 10 seasons, let me know in the comments down below. But let me know your video ideas also in the comments and who you would put on each year for your greatest player. Guys, I've been Ollie Ward. You guys have been excellent, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheery. Oh.